Welcome back. I am so excited to be here with you again, Maggie.
Woohoo!
Here we are at the beginning of season 2 for navigating the
Season
healing path.
2. Here we are.
This is where we're going to get into the coping mechanisms, the skills, the tools that we get to use on this healing journey to help us along the way.
Yeah. And today we are specifically talking about those coping mechanisms and replacing negative ones, quote unquote, negative coping mechanisms with positive ones.
That's right. It's a very important step, and it's an offshoot of the self-awareness that we talked about last season in the foundations, where you learn to recognize your patterns, your thoughts, the things that run you, and how you react in the world, and like what are your triggers. And then once you know that, what they are, and you begin to remove them from your life, because they if they're not serving you, that is, well, you need something to put in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're going to get into. Here we go.
Woohoo!
So before we get into it, though, as we love to do, just remember to breathe. So let's just breathe together and connect and drop into our heart spaces so that we can receive the messages, the words through love. So receive a nice deep breath and release. And I feel like one more time for good measure. Just one nice big deep breath. And then make sure you bring that consciousness down into your heart. Still a fan of breathing?
Oh, it's the best thing. I feel like our track record has been 2 breaths specifically.
It feels good. I'm usually a big fan of 3. It's like a magic number for me, but I don't know why. For this, it's always just, it feels good at 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm going to go with it. I'll trust it. So, negative coping skills, coping mechanisms. Now, remember, we are not professionals in this arena of mental health. We are observers. We are people that experience healing, that have tried a number of different modalities and therapies in order for us to remember who we are and release what was given to us, whether it was, from the family and culture or friends or, wherever it came from, and just kind of assessing for ourselves how we want to live. And so, negative coping skills, we want to name some of them. Like
Yeah,
what?
I feel like that would be a helpful.
It would be like,
question to start it off.
Yeah.
Why do we adapt negative coping skills?
To survive. It's like the negative and the positive are human perceptions through judgment. And yes, there's negative frequency, there's positive frequency. There is something to that. But it's more like these negative coping mechanisms over time end up harming you and keeping you disconnected or separate or distracted or wallowing or attached or too identified with the sickness to get better. So coping mechanisms are coping mechanisms. It's how they express themselves and how your system uses them to help you survive. Now, like the biggest one that I had an issue with for a long time was manipulation, right? I had to learn that manipulation is not good nor bad. It just is, right? It's how you use it. It's a tool. It's a coping tool to get your needs met, right? Babies are born with it. because they don't have language, they don't have ability, they don't know anything. They're just here to survive, and we're there to help them survive. So they manipulate us by crying, by laughing, by, just being themselves. Their beautiful, glorious little selves, and we are there to help nurture them.
I've never thought about a baby's needs being met as manipulation.
Oh, totally.
What makes it manipulation?
Emotional manipulation?
It's not intentional.
No. It doesn't have to be intentional to be manipulative. If a child, let's look at a toddler, okay?
What's the definition of manipulation?
To bend something to your will, to manipulate a situation to get your needs, desires, outcome met. A toddler does not want to go to bed, right? So it's going to come up with all sorts of things to avoid that outcome, whether it's going to get upset about something, or it's going to run away, or it's going to, whatever it is. Zoe would tend to like bring up upsetting things right before bed. Well, this happened at school today. And I'm like, wait a second. You've been here all afternoon, all evening. Now you bring this up to discuss, and you're all of a sudden so upset. Now, naturally, I still give her the time and the space to like look at it, but I'm like, how about we just bring that up a little earlier? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a bad thing. It's how they get, a kid wants to play. They're going to find ways to, or they don't want to do something. Like, it's not necessarily bad. It's just how they know how to get their needs met.
Okay.
That's why they need good, healthy boundaries. That's why the consistency of the parent of being like, okay, if you're going to scream at me, you're not going to get the very thing you're asking for. You can ask me, we could talk about it, we can plan it, like, but this behavior is not going to lead to the outcome that you are wanting. So we have to teach them how to control themselves, how to regulate themselves and their emotions and all of that. But that takes time, right? To me, it's like a real indicator of emotional immaturity. And if you, as you grow, you don't learn how to ask and receive and do all of this, you just know how to manipulate the system to get what you want out of it, Whether it's like sales. High pressure sales tactics. Those are all emotional manipulators, to get you to make a decision that they want you to make that benefits them. They're saying it also benefits you, and I'm sure there are benefits to the person, but also it doesn't really feel as good to the person on the other end of that tool.
Yeah. I think where I was getting hung up, because I feel like I have a easier time grasping the concept of like the toddler manipulation. But I guess when I think about babies, I just think they're innately crying because of like the pain of being hungry or uncomfortable. I guess I just kind of thought like they inherently do those things as babies, and not so much as like a learned thing of like, oh, if I cry, then I get fed. It's more of just like, I am crying because I am feeling this sensation.
Both are true.
Okay.
Both.
So maybe in the beginning it's
natural. It's all natural.
Right.
You're hungry. Your stomach is hurting because it wants food. You're going to cry and let them know. You have a soiled diaper that's uncomfortable. It could be burning. It could be very uncomfortable. And so please come help take care of this. Now, it's when we talk about like attachment style, babies do learn, when I cry, this happens.
Right. Yeah. That's when I was like, oh, that's when it turns to manipulation.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. But it's not a bad thing. It's just like, I want hugs, please. I don't want to be alone. It's dark and scary in here. I want to feel comforted.
Yeah. I think I'm still very much attached to the societal definition of manipulation, where it has a negative connotation to it.
Yeah. So. And I was stuck there for a long time too, as someone who was very easily manipulated. So of course it would make me angry.
Right.
But that also was really kind of great because I was also not in touch with my anger for so long, so that once I finally was allowing myself to express it and feel it, that became an indicator of manipulation. Like, because I had let go of so many other things that the only thing that ever made me really angry was somebody who was being manipulative. And so that just became a red flag. I'm like, oh, look what's happening. It just became an awareness. But I kept letting go of the emotional attachment to my past hurt. And the more that you do that, the less you're going to care that it's actually being used. Unless somebody's trying to use it on you, in which case you could just laugh at them and be like, nice try. Or what is that? Why I haven't felt this in a long time? What's happening? Oh, are you trying to get something from me? And it's like you have awareness around it. You can speak about it. You can speak to it. Yeah.
So you were saying that you developed negative coping tools to defend yourself from the manipulation in your life?
Or for sure. I mean,
Okay.
you develop negative coping tools to protect yourself.
Right. Yes.
A lot of self-sabotage is a negative coping tool, or you can blow up a relationship before it gets too good because the negative belief is, well, people always leave me anyway, so I'm just going to save them the trouble, or I'm just going to protect myself, being vulnerable. There's all these like pitfalls and traps when we get to some good things that happen. Some of these negative coping skills that thinks like, it's there to protect you. The mind, the ego is there to keep you from getting run over, to keep you safe, keep you from getting eaten by a tiger. But if it goes unchecked, it's going to keep out all of the good things as well. Because it's going to make you think that person down the road will become a monster. So might as well just not get involved. So that's when it goes to that negative side, from something that's really trying to protect you to something that's really harming you, from overprotection so that you can't grow. So you stay stuck and small and emotionally immature and not able to handle the things. I've been hearing a lot in my consciousness and things I'm seeing and other people are saying it. I'm like, I love this. We don't do this healing and do all of this work so that we can handle the hard things. Yes, that is a side effect. We can handle it more, but also we do this, we heal so that we can handle the good things that come in. So that's a big motivation for me, because that's been my goal for my whole life. My life purpose is to be in joy as much as possible. You've heard me say this.
Yes.
So
I love it and I fully support it.
Thank you. So I've had to assess all of my coping skills. I even mentioned the quote last season, happiness is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to cope with it. So I knew from a young age, coping skills was where it's at. And as I got to be an adult and out on my own, I realized quite quickly, I don't have a lot of positive coping skills. I know how to run away to keep myself safe. I know how to sabotage to keep myself safe. I know how to hide. I know how, those are really some big ones for me. The running, the hiding, the avoiding. What else have I done? What else?
Yeah, I actually, you read my mind. I wanted to ask what of your main negative coping mechanisms has been.
Those are
I can share mine.
Pretty consistent. And that's what I fight with now. Like, I'll walk out of an argument or a heated discussion I'm having with Josh, and then I'm like, don't you walk away. You get back in there and face it.
Josh is her husband, for anyone wondering.
So I have to remind myself and get myself back in the room. Because unless I know myself well enough that I would benefit, he would benefit, the whole family would benefit if I took some space and regulated and calmed myself down. So then I can actually calmly discuss something. Because when I'm too emotional, you get blinded. You can't see clearly. It's just, it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the big three. The running, the hiding, and the avoiding, and the sabotage,
In a way, isn't that all just avoidance? They're just different flavors and strategies of avoidance?
Maybe.
Although I do understand how running is...
Because you can run and not hide. You can just run and not try to hide where you are.
That's true. They have always said you can run, but you can't hide.
And what's funny is those were my nightmares predominantly growing up, and in like my 20s I had nightmares all the time. My subconscious has been dealing with a lot of things for decades. It's better now. But those were the dreams. I was being chased. I was being hunted. I was trying to be harmed. And so I was running and hiding a lot. And so I think when I stopped doing that, they stopped coming. Like those kinds of dreams. Like I did learn how to like stand my ground and be like, no, I'm not going anywhere. I also dream a lot of going to school. You know, I love school. I also love
Well, yeah, that was
learning.
your happy place, right?
Well, yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay.
Ups and downs throughout my life. But
That's fair.
in general, I do love learning and I will never stop. I would go back to school for so many different things. So yeah, so those are my negative ones. Being present, staying in my body. I would dissociate a lot. We talked about that last season too, where I just check out, you know.
Yeah.
So
In the face of conflict,
yes.
mainly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or difficult conversations.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really have examples of how to stay present and have conflict. It was all manipulation. Somebody has to be wrong. Oftentimes I was to blame. I took that. Or like other people around me, but like that was it was a pattern and a role that I fell into naturally, was being the scapegoat. You know, so that is what kind of comes up for me now. Even still, but I work on that. I'm like, so yeah, I work on it. But I did learn through therapy, through the self-help books, that once you recognize it, once you name the program, once you like can see it, you can never unsee it. That's why your mind wants to keep you away from meditation. Because meditation is where you're observing, where you're noticing, where you're collecting all of that data, right? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then once you're actually expressing it, you're like, oh, I'm doing the thing. Oh, I hate that. And then, but it's like, well, what do you do then? Okay, I see it, not a fan of it. I let it go. But then what? You need something to replace it. You need that pattern interrupt where when you're in that cycle, there's something you can do to break yourself out of that cycle so that you can choose a different path. And that's the beauty of exploration. That's the experimentation. That's where you begin to open yourself to new ideas, to new tools, and you begin to play with these tools. You know, until there's an awareness and openness and the courage it takes to like shift yourself and to admit and take responsibility for your own behaviors, and then actively choosing something else, there's a whole lot of mechanisms going on there that is really hard to navigate. And that's why you need to learn it slowly, to like practice the different things. You know, we can go over this whole list of them, and we will. We're going to go over a whole bunch, even throughout the season, just to inspire or see what resonates within you. You know, and a good rule of thumb: if you really love it, awesome, go for it. If you really hate it, awesome, you should also go for it. Anything you're neutral towards, like, maybe, you can leave that alone. When you have the extreme opposite reactions of either love it or hate it, you need it.
Yeah, that really intense emotional charge,
Right.
like, is the greatest indicator of attachment.
Yeah.
In some way, yeah.
So, you know, you don't have to understand it. You don't have to like it. You just have to play with it. But one of the first tools, what I call that? I guess I would call journaling a coping mechanism. I think I would. That was the first one I ever picked up that was introduced to me as a teenager. That was the first place where I can like actually speak my truth without ever being interrupted or told that I was wrong or anything. Like it was like, this is my feeling. This is what I see. This is what I did. This, you know, and just get it out. Right. And then when you go back, you read, you reflect, you're like, oh, wow, look at that. So there's a lot of benefit in there, you know, because if you can't speak your truth to this in this relationship that you're in, you know, that could be a good outlet to honor that part of you that isn't being validated or received or no one's holding space for, in your environment.
Right.
That was the first one for me.
I would definitely count journaling as a coping. I'm more drawn to the words coping tool for journaling than I am to coping mechanism.
Yes, I would agree. Coping tool.
Is there any difference between coping mechanism and coping tool?
I would think there is subtle, slight differences.
Okay, because I feel like they're slightly different flavors.
Right, because like a
in
tool,
my
I
brain.
think of something like I can wield it myself, my pen for journaling. This is my tool,
Okay.
right? A mechanism is sort of like a program that runs. So we have these automatic programs that run, right, that are supposed to serve us. But if we observe, well, that's not serving me, then you have to replace that mechanism with another one that's where people will work with affirmations. You're creating a new belief, a new thought.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be
Subliminals.
like a mechanism, right? Something that you create within your system to help you run smoothly, right? So that you can have the best kind of day, or you can process it quickly, or, you can just be yourself.
Would you say coping mechanisms are more internal and coping tools are more external in terms of resources?
That feels
like under the blanket
good.
of coping resource?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone talk about this, so I was like asking the questions because I'm like, oh, is that just a me thing of why, like, because mechanism and tool feels different to me, but I feel like a lot of people have used it interchangeably.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that
I really like what you said there, because that also feels good, because like the coping mechanism is the internal working. That's you figuring out your system, how you operate, your nervous system, how you feel in certain environments, and how your mind runs and all of that. Whereas a coping tool is something you go to deal with a challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. It's an inner world and an outer world. Coping. Umbrella.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's really cool.
Nice.
Thanks for asking that.
Yeah, I wonder if that resonates with anybody else out there, because we're all different, and I feel like we all interpret things in very different ways. But that's cool that resonates for you too.
What are your like top 3 negative coping mechanisms, like or your negative programming or coping skills?
The main one that comes to mind, I guess, as a mechanism would be avoidance, which usually comes in the physical tool form of distracting myself with either like doom scrolling or playing a video game. Usually when I'm hyper focusing on a video game and I'm going through like a game phase, I am heavily avoiding something in my actual real life. I haven't really thought much about other negative coping mechanisms or tools that I've picked up, because I feel like that's been the main repeating one for me throughout my life. Is codependence a negative coping mechanism?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's a system that was created by someone who had high needs, high emotions, had to control a lot of things. And so the survival coping mechanism there was hypervigilance, making sure everything was taken care of just in case, trying to anticipate the emotional state of the person of conflict or high conflict personality, so yes, codependence, people pleasing is up there. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I remember
that one.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, where you can't say no, because you have to sacrifice yourself. These are all survival mechanisms, so that you can receive the love and validation that you're seeking.
Yeah. Yeah, that codependence one I've been very much looking at in my present day life, specifically the codependent attachment that I have towards my parents, which I feel like we're humans. That's a part of the process. But
yes.
I am just now learning that I am, in fact, an autonomous adult who can make her own decisions on every single aspect of my life. And that's been game changing. What a thought. But yeah, I guess the codependence, because I have done a lot of things in my life in order to receive love from my parents or from friends. And under that umbrella definitely includes the people pleasing, which I feel like I have done a very good job at detaching from
Mm-hmm.
and changing that mechanism into more positive mechanisms through the tools of boundaries.
So you offset your codependence and your people pleasing by establishing a healthy coping mechanism of boundaries.
Yeah, that was one of the main ones that helped me.
I wanted to put just like a fine tune on, just like make note.
For sure.
That was the antidote to it. You recognize that this coping mechanism, the people pleasing, the codependence, this is the thing you were trying or working on removing. And in order to offset that space within you, you replaced it with healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
So that you felt safe to say no if it didn't serve you or you weren't able to without any guilt or shame involved. Because the people who are allowed inside your boundaries are respectful.
Yes.
Yes.
All of that. Much
Excellent.
better said than I could have explained it.
Yeah.
Because still working on it. It's definitely still a case by case practice.
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's a slow process, and it should be slow.
It gets easier over time.
It does.
Though, for sure.
And
yeah.
then there's other coping tools that you can use to help integrate that newness as well. That's like meditation is the number one coping mechanism because so much happens physically and emotionally and spiritually in that space of quiet and stillness, or even if there is chaos happening, it's being directed and healed, right? And this is part of the building the trust and faith that this is the work, you're doing a good job. It's supposed to look and feel like that. Healing does not look or feel good most of the time, but that's why we need all the positive coping tools, is because it helps offset the pain and suffering that we have to go through again to get to the other side of the healing, right? So it serves us. This is just how it is, right? Like this is the path. This is what's here. So, and it's one big experiment. What feels right? What resonates? What tool do you need right now? And this is going to change over the years. Like I've heard Polly talk about how this one meditation.
Our friend Polly. Sorry.
It's okay. We mentioned her last season. Everybody just get used to it. We have a friend named Polly. She's great.
We could have some new listeners out there who are hopping in for season 2.
That's true.
If that's the case, go check out season 1.
So she would be talking about how she had this meditation and it was exactly what she needed. And she used it for a long time. And then she was ready for something else because she had shifted. She has done that work so much. It had integrated. She felt safe. She felt more grounded. And then she realized she needed something else. And then she found the next right thing. So it's like, this is part of the journey, is you're going to use it until it's not working or giving you the results that you want. And then that's usually time to pick up another tool, to pick up a new meditation or a new action or a new therapy, or figure it out.
Yeah, there are so many.
There's so much you can do. It's amazing.
What have been some of your favorite positive coping mechanisms and or tools? Well, I don't know. Do you want to talk about ones that we're using in the present, or do you want to talk about some of the early initial ones that helped you when you were first looking at your running, your hiding, and your avoidance patterns?
Yeah. Learning to be okay being uncomfortable was really helpful. Like this work, this healing work, this metaphysical work, it is a skill, like muscle building. It takes time to grow the strength using these skills. So it's like I said, there's a process to it, and they come and they go. And it's like, it's just this unique combination of things that you use. But for me, the therapy was really helpful. Holding boundaries, like learning how to speak my truth neutrally or with like, because she taught me like if I would get like too upset about telling a story, we'd have to pause and I have to regulate so I can continue the story neutrally as possible. But that helped me learn how to regulate my emotions, how to be with it, how to feel it, how to direct the energy out and down. You know what I mean? That's what the meditation really offers you, is like a connection to feel yourself, to feel the energy. And then it gives you pathways to send your emotions that are no longer serving you, to like direct and guide your pain out of you.
Yeah. And usually sending it to the earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm sure next episode,
Yes.
we will be getting all into that process.
Yes. So holding space, learning how to take up space, learning how to speak my truth, these were all really helpful.
Holding space is a positive coping tool?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Oh, explain.
Do you feel it's a negative one?
I definitely don't feel like it's a negative one. I never would have put it in the category of coping anything.
Oh. Well, think about it this way. Holding space is being able to have your feelings at the same time as somebody else is having their feelings and not making anybody wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people can't do that. They want to feel right. They have to, it's a more than less than game, right? So learning how to hold space helps you see what's in front of you. It helps you identify where you are and not being codependent. Are you getting it?
I think I was thinking about it in the context of holding space for others versus holding space for yourself.
Oh no, it
'Cause
had
now
to
I'm
be
like-
for me first.
Yeah, because now I'm like, learning to hold space for yourself is totally a coping mechanism.
Yes.
I was thinking about it in the situation of holding it for someone else.
It becomes the gift that you get to hold for
yeah,
others.
because that's how I was like, yeah, I'm like, that's like a gift. That's like a nice thing a healing thing to offer somebody else. But I guess when you're learning how to do it for you, then
If I
guess in
had
that
no
way it's
space to have my feelings as a child, there was no room for anger or upset because the people around me didn't know how to deal with it, or they thought I was saying something bad about them and making them feel bad about how they weren't showing up or how they were failing, even though I wasn't looking at that. I'm like, ow, I'm hurting. And then they would take it personally and then make me wrong for it. So I had to learn how to hold space for my feelings and not make them wrong. So for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was something I had to practice.
That makes sense.
Communication, I had to practice how to speak I was really good at reading it or writing it. I wanted to be able to learn how to have my feelings and talk about them at the same time, because that was not something I had much at all. It was all feelings and upset and loudness and very little like resolution or adaptive energy. It was just all survival stuff. End of the world, really, really big things. Everything was either big or it was not fun existing for a long time. But I always had hope that I could one day be happy and learn how to be happy. And that's why I've been doing this, is so that I can create more space for that joy. But I had to learn, in order to make space for that joy, I had to release my repressed emotions that were taking up too much room in my system and in my body and in my life. So that's why the positive coping mechanisms, so I can learn how to deal with my emotions. So I can learn to process the things that I have been avoiding for decades and doing it in a healthy way.
So when you were journaling at the beginning to practice getting your feelings out of you, what was kind of the progression of the evolution of that positive coping tool from just starting to journal to being able to speak your emotions as you were having them? Were there like other positive coping tools within that spectrum that helped you get to that point?
Yeah. As you're asking the question, I'm remembering because for like a long time I would need space to understand my feelings. But when I started to be like, no, I want to be able to do this live, right? Josh would hold, like, he would just be silent, be still while I'm like struggling to have my emotion, then find the words. But I had to like calm myself down, right? Like I had to learn how to regulate through breath, through grounding myself, through allowing the tears to come and blubber, and then be able to express what I was going through. Because sometimes, like, fighting, like arguing, we don't have fights. Like when there really are arguments, like, or where there heated discussions, because like we don't name call. Like there's never been like like that's not how we fight. Like
Yeah.
when I think
It's
of
not
fighting,
abusive.
right? Like when I would think of fighting as a kid, like, you stupid, you're so dumb, how can you do, like there's a lot of shame,
Yeah.
right? And making people wrong. It's like we would recognize how we were feeling and then be able to like express where we were coming from. Like, I felt this when you said that, because it, we ultimately with ourselves realized any argument we had was 100% from the past coming into our present.
Right.
So once he and I gained that awareness, we learned shorthand communication to be like, okay, when this happens again, let's use this code word or phrase to be like, oh, right, hold on, let's just start again. Or let's look at that and remind each other, we are not who you had in the past.
Yeah.
I'm
The
not
negative
trying
to the
to
positive.
fuck with you. I'm not trying to manipulate you. I understand I might feel that way because he had filters. I had filters, right? On that made us, it had it distort what was actually there, because that's what it's used to seeing. We had to learn how to clear ourselves and give each other the benefit of the doubt that that's not where we're coming from, because we love each other. We are here to support and communicate and grow together. And so if I feel a certain way that he's doing this, it's actually a role that I observe from my past that he's embodying for a moment, or that's how I'm even perceiving it. It's not actually true. So I had to learn how to see also a bit clearer too, and clear my vision. And that's also where meditation comes in. You clear your third eye, how you see, how you perceive things.
Mm-hmm. So from when I've heard you talk about this before, because you and your husband were both kind of like living in past situations, that was kind of like the negative, or that was like the trigger for the negative coping mechanism to come out, which sometimes that would be like defensiveness on one side or offensiveness in the other. Passive aggression.
Ooh, that was
Yeah.
I hate that one. That one's really uncomfortable. I would rather just be much more direct than just be sarcastic and passive aggressive. Blech.
Passive aggression puts my nervous system in a complete fawning state.
Interesting.
I have learned I have a very difficult time with it. It freaks me out. I love that though, how you guys, over the course of having needed to have these intense, heated arguments, however you wish to label them, you were able to gather the awareness of the negative coping tools. You saw it. And now you're actively taking the steps to change that and to replace them with positive coping tools, like the code words. That's a positive coping tool that you guys get to use in your communication.
Oh,
and
for sure.
Freaking rad.
Because that's been the most recent one since I started the Artist's Way. I know you've heard me talk about this. We have had more of those heated discussions because I've been unblocking myself
Mhm.
and going through a lot of healing. But unfortunately, a side effect is I'm not fit for human consumption because I have these negative coping mechanisms that lash out unintentionally. I don't want to hurt anybody, but somehow when I lose control and I'm not in the driver's seat because I'm on something or I'm in something or something is replaying, reenacting for me to see, process, look at, release, like do the whole healing thing, I have to be really careful how I interact with my loved ones because I don't want to accidentally, inadvertently create low self-confidence or, oh no, I'm doing something wrong. So when I realized my healing was spilling out and affecting them, we had to have a meeting. I'm like, all right, look, I need you guys to like understand that I'm going to be healing. I have a lot of things, these old
That you are
stuff
healing.
that I am healing, but I also don't want to hurt you guys. So I'm going to need like a little bubble. So as a family, we came up with these code words, which when I'm feeling funky, like, but I still have to like, do my dinner and take care of things. But I want to let you guys know I'm feeling funky. My code word, this is actually for anybody who's feeling this way in the house, is I'm feeling like a toxic potato. I'm a toxic potato right now. I'm fuming off my gases. There's a lot of toxic shit that I'm processing and dealing with. So I need some space, right? So that you don't accidentally breathe this in. Because this is mine. I'm wanting to take personal responsibility for this.
Mm-hmm.
So when the family hears toxic potato, they acknowledge my state of being with gas mask, which is their understanding of I am protecting myself. I am going to detach and not take anything personal as much as I possibly can. And I'm going to give you your space, right? And not take anything personal. And then if the person has room or a desire to be supportive, you can use the code word soothing leaves, which is the offer to, can I get you a cup of tea or help out with something that would make you feel better? So there's like that, but that's also not a requirement. But basically the big gist is if I say I'm a toxic potato, just give me some room. It's okay. I'm going to work. I'm going to be as responsible as I can for my feelings, but please don't take any of this because it's not yours. Right? Because I don't want to pass this on to another generation, as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
So, but also I'm just like, because I want my daughter to be equipped with coping mechanisms at a young age. She's 10. She's been
With positive coping mechanisms.
Is that what I said?
You just said coping mechanisms.
Yeah, I did. That's true. With positive ones. And good, healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
And being responsible for her own behaviors and thoughts and feelings and not, being easily manipulated. But, it's a human condition. It's a thing. It's like bred into us. It's just there.
Yeah.
And it's just learning to be in control of our emotions or how we show up in the world. So yeah, and I just want to be more responsible with how I interact with my family. I don't want to punish them because I had a traumatic upbringing. Mm-hmm. But I also am not into it affecting me any longer because I do not like these things. It was not pleasant, and I don't like reenacting them and using them. So it feels terrible.
Yeah.
I'm like, how can it just be going? And it's like, I feel so crazy. I'm like, this is not me. And I can see where it's coming from now because that's part of the work is when you're triggered. And mind you, we need to be triggered sometimes in this healing state because that's how we see it. You need to be triggered. So use the trigger. The only way to identify if the engine in your car is okay is if the hood is up. The hood is up if you're triggered. You're looking at how everything is running. Where did it come from? What was the first time that you remember feeling this way? Who was it? And so when you trace it to the source, when you're in that triggered moment, that's part of like where the healing process is, to untie it, to soothe it, to offer yourself that compassion and that love that you did not get back then. This is the work. So I'm good with doing the work, but I do not like my family being in pain because of it or
Yeah.
getting upset. And even like, as I recognized, like, I'll come from this point of, okay, I'm practicing asking for help and saying the things that I would like to see, or this or that. And then I'll do that. I'll do the thing I'm not comfortable with, and it still will blow up. And the other person will be like, how can you think that? La, la, la. And he gets so defensive. And I'm like, and then once he gets defensive, I get defensive. And then I get passive aggressive. And all of this stuff happens. I'm like, God damn it. I did not, this is exactly what I didn't want to happen. But I'm like, why did it still happen? Okay, well, let's look at it.
It's like this triggering domino train.
It is. But that's why you have these conversations with resolution. You don't just talk about what went wrong. You talk about how do we avoid this in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to this point in self-awareness to be like, look, when I ask for something, it's like 50-50. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm like, when I ask for something and you get defensive, I get defensive. So my question to you is, okay, if I say something and you're feeling defensive, can you do me a favor? Can you just say, I'm feeling defensive? And then I'll be like, well, shit. Okay, hold on. Let me try that again. Let me let you know where I was coming from, because that was really hard for me to muster up the courage to ask for something, because that's been a challenge of mine. And so he knows this. Like, the people who love you are going to know this because you're talking about yourself and they love you and they're okay with it. So to avoid me getting triggered from your trigger, can you just tell me you're triggered? And then we can like look at that, and I can like, we can just communicate our way around this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is where I was coming from.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't saying anything underhanded or assuming anything. You know what I mean? Like, it just helps mitigate the upset.
Yeah. To a point you were talking about earlier, I feel like I've noticed at times when I have been triggered, especially in times that my nervous system kind of goes into that fawning space, it's very weird to have the awareness of the software that's running on your computer, but to still have the software be running and for you to not really be able to do anything about it. You're just like watching the program run.
Yes.
And it's very odd.
I agree.
But it's also fascinating. And that is where the space is created for us to be able to replace whatever negative coping tool is running, whatever old software is operating on your computer. That's when we get to be like, huh, this is very outdated software. And I did not notice until now when I clicked on the info button at the top of the page. Well, hey, I'm going to go type into Google real quick. Going to go type in the latest software update, and I'm going to click upload.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time. It takes a little time to
does.
download, and for it to, you need a reboot. Got to reboot the computer. But then soon enough, you have a new operating software. I keep oscillating between software and operating system, and those are kind of two different things. So
I understand
losing
where
the
you're
words,
coming
but
from. I do. And I recognize that a lot. The way I've described it, because this is how I experienced it, like when you're first waking up to yourself and what runs you, the programs and everything, you're just observing. So it's all still running, and you're like, wow, look at that. Look at how I'm behaving. Okay, not a fan. Doesn't feel good in my body, right? And then once it's over and you've come back, you take responsibility for it. I saw that. I'm so sorry how I treated you, how I spoke. That was not okay. And I'm working on that, right? So you acknowledge it. You say, I saw it when it was happening. And I'm taking responsibility, and I am my resolution is this. This is what I'm going to try next time.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why the lessons keep repeating until you learn the damn lesson, right? Until you learn it. So once you've gotten really good, you're going to start to notice the trigger and the system start to run, and you're going to be like, and another thing. Okay, hold on a second. And you're going to stop it maybe halfway through, or at some point, you're going to be able to stop it where it is and take responsibility early. Like, okay, wait, hold on, I saw it. Hold on, I need to breathe. What was the new tool I'm fucking using this week? Like, what was I supposed to be using? And like, you take that moment and you regulate, or you do the thing, right? And then it's going to get to this point where the trigger's going to want to fight, and you're going to go, oh, and then you just swallow it. And you're like, wait, hold on. I have a thing for this. What was the thing I was doing? Okay, yes, this is what I'm doing now.
Where's my floaty?
Yes. So you get to catch it earlier and earlier, to where it'll become a blip on a screen. Like, you'll remember, like, oh yeah, that phrase used to trigger me, or this scenario used to really upset me. But because you've healed all of the emotional triggers, all the emotion that's connected to the trauma from your past, it's no longer going to affect you the way that it used to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this natural progression backwards,
Yeah.
so it doesn't run you. So you're not yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't feel myself. That does not feel authentic to me when I'm in that state of fear. Usually fear has been a big underlying thing, especially if I would get upset with Zoe,
Mm-hmm.
or I would get really harsh. I have this harshness program when I get afraid, right? Because I'm trying to prevent her from getting hurt in the future. Because, well, if you don't learn how to go to bed, how are you going to take care of yourself? How are you going to have a job? How are you going to do this? Like, oh my God, if you're not going to take a shower, oh my God. Like, you like catastrophize all of this because you have this fear, but I'm not into parenting with fear,
Yeah. That's negative manipulation that a lot of us are.
Yeah,
I
fear
feel like
fear
more
is a
used to.
bitch.
Yeah.
I get it. It definitely keeps you alive and not jumping off of mountains and bridges and things, for the most part. But no, I don't prefer it.
I don't either.
I really don't.
It's really draining
It is. And I get it.
and really anxiety inducing.
But it's really a mechanism for control.
Yeah.
That's really that's the payoff for fear, are the few that are using it to emotionally manipulate, to maintain control, or to get what they want,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that power. It's an efficient tool for a lot, but it doesn't feel good to me, so I choose not to. No judgment for anybody else. You do you. But I have to live in this body.
Yeah. I kind of feel like that's one of the biggest programs that is getting disconnected from this planet at this time for a lot of us. I think we're firsthand seeing how much fear has been a control tactic, whether it's from parents who don't want you to die, like in that kind of way, all the way to
Or be homeless.
Right. Out of that fear of like that worry, that
lack mindset,
the lack mentality. There's that kind of fear, which I feel like is more, I don't want to say on the side of loving fear, because that's like not really a thing, but there's that all the way to the spectrum of like political fear, religious fear, controlling of grander populations for usually money or power gains. And I feel like what we're seeing a lot on Earth right now, and as humans, is a lot of this stuff coming up within us, within our political systems all over the world, of us seeing how much fear has been running. I don't want to say everything on this planet, because that's not true, but a lot of stuff. And I see within me how much my parents have inundated me with fear, and how when you turn on the news, it's mostly fear. It's mostly all of these much more negative, upsetting things that have happened. And it just paints this picture of fear and anxiety for the world around us, when in reality, you go outside and if you smile at someone, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to smile back and be nice. Anywho, this could be a whole different tangent, an episode, but I feel like a lot of us are waking up to the lack mindset that we have been instilled with and the fear programs in humans. And I think a lot of us are waking up to this and choosing, just as you are, and just as I'm trying as goddamn hard as I can to move into a much more loving and open and accepting space and abundance mentality.
That's a definite good one to offset that fear. Fear is the undercurrent underneath so many of the negative coping mechanisms and tools out there. Fear. I won't be loved, or I'll lose this, or, and that's all attachment.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to shift out of that, as you release that, because if it doesn't feel good to live there anymore, let's move out of the neighborhood, out of the state, and it starts slowly. Gratitude is a positive coping tool.
That's a great one.
Because that is the one that was my gateway when I was just started, like, the intentional, super intentional, mindful, I'm going to be happy no matter what. And I guess I will practice gratitude. That was like really in the front. And then once you open yourself to that, for me, the next progression was abundance and being grateful for the abundance and being mindful or aware of it and making note of the synchronicities and the magic, So it just sort of evolves and grows with the individual. And I think the most important thing is following what excites you, following what resonates. Again, if you love it or you hate it, try it. But really try it. Don't just, half-ass it kind of thing. I grew up with, like, you're half-assing it, but try it. Give it a real effort.
Yeah.
Just see how it goes. And just observe without judgment.
Yeah. Well, like how in The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, in the book, she mentions how the people that have the strongest hatred towards one of the main practices in the book, which is called the morning pages, you wake up and you write for 30 to 40 minutes straight until you get 3 pages on this big old notebook. The people that have the strongest resistance and dislike towards them are the people that get the most out of it.
They are.
In the end of the book course. I feel like there's a lot of truth to that.
There is.
Worth in trying and experimenting with anything that evokes a strong emotion within you.
It's
good
like
or bad
noticing the resistance. Where are you resistant? Do that thing. Do the thing you're resisting. Or allow it to be resistant and see what happens. Or ask yourself the question, what's the payoff if I stay here? Do I get a lot of attention for this, for being in suffering and wallowing and pity party? And yes, you do. People can get a lot of attention for suffering and grieving, and it becomes addictive because they're still looking outside of themselves for satisfaction and fulfillment. But all of this is an inside job. Like, it, as much as I really, there's this young part of me that really hates it, but it is a choice. It's a choice to stay stuck. It's a choice to stay in the fear, in the lack, in the negative thoughts and mindset. I mean, it's not easy to change or shift yourself. No one said it was easy, but it can be. It can. That's my new thing. I'm like, nah, I don't need to suffer or struggle. Like, I get that that's something like you have to work hard. You have to do it by yourself. You got to do this. And it's like, I really like a team. I'm so grateful for my team. I don't have to do it by myself. Things can just be easy. It can just flow. And that's what I'm choosing now to focus my attention on, is where it's flowing, where it's easy to move, where and be and get through. So you just get to figure out your life and how to manifest your own reality through this work, through recognizing what's running you, the thoughts, the programs, the beliefs, how it's affecting you, how it's showing up. And then, is that serving you? Noted. And if it's not serving you, what would? And then like learning how to let go of the old paradigm while instilling a new one. And that's where meditation comes in handy, because when you can get yourself into that deep theta state where you're most suggestible. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this.
Mm-hmm.
Totally recommend his stuff, because he talks about it from like a doctor neurological position. But he goes, that's where you're most receptive to suggestion. That's why hypnotherapy works. Get people to cluck like a chicken on stage. Their inhibitions are down. They're open to suggestion. That's where you reprogram that software. That's where you use those affirmations of, I am enough. I am powered. I am capable. I am strong. I can ask for help and receive it.
Yeah. I feel like that's a pretty great summary overview of, I feel like, of what a bulk of this healing work is creating that space within you to cultivate more awareness around the coping mechanisms and tools that you currently have, and being able to assess, are these actually working for me? Is this what feels good to me? Or do I want to be operating in a different way? And then learning about the ways in which you do want to show up, and then working on implementing those. That's kind of like a big thing with the work. Quick side note to what you just said. With the affirmations, this has been really interesting because I've been hearing Teal Swan on my social pages talking about this concept with affirmations specifically. And I just want to throw this out there because I find it fascinating, and I feel like it's been a helpful kind of key for me as I've been noticing some of my coping mechanisms and wanting to replace them, and I'm in the beginning stages of this reprogramming. But the main thing that she says is the affirmations, they really only work when there's enough of an opening within you of belief of that statement. So you can't just blatantly, I guess, be operating in that negative coping mechanism. Like, I guess if you remove, or you haven't gotten to the point of awareness of the mechanism, is maybe a way to put this, then the affirmations aren't going to work because you don't have the space to bring in the new operating system.
The visual I see as you're talking about this is there's a wound that has a Band-Aid over it, and the affirmations are the medicine that can't get to the wound because it's covered in a Band-Aid.
Yeah, that, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a big game changer for me. Because like a few years ago, doing affirmations in the mirror or anything, it was like, I'm blatantly lying to myself. Like, I don't believe any of this for a second. This isn't going to change anything. But through doing the other work of the meditation and the learning to hold space for myself and to be okay feeling heavy things, which I wasn't before, now I can start, like, the door has opened to maybe believe, like, oh, maybe I am not those things. I've been learning that I am a much deeper consciousness connected to this grander universe, that the base level of it is the frequency of love. And maybe all of these negative feeling things and these harsh beliefs I have about myself, maybe those aren't true. Like how I thought this woo-woo concept of love, I thought that was false. So there has to kind of be like that, I guess, just awareness at the end of the day in order to be more open to the new program. I just wanted to mention that.
For sure. And I totally hear what you're saying and what she's saying. And what that makes me think of and feel is that's why the individual plays at their own pace and in their own way.
Error. Yeah.
Because while that was your personal experience.
That's true. Yeah, that was just me.
Of course. And I know. But there are some legitimate reasons why it is still beneficial to say it before you even believe it. Because the phrase itself, especially if it resonates or it gets you upset, like, keep working that affirmation because it could help create the space.
Mm.
Like it could dissolve the covering and creates that opening for it to begin to take root.
Yeah.
And then you will eventually believe it if you stick with it too. You can't use it for a day or even a week and be like, it's not working. Like
Yeah, it needs
this
to be a
is
long-term commitment.
3 months. Like it takes a while. We're very stubborn creatures, and our minds, while as malleable as and adaptive as they are, if we have rigid thinking, it's going to be harder for it to get in.
Mm.
That's why openness is a requirement for healing. To be open to try something, to see something, to feel something. You know, that's like why in like the Letting Go book by David R. Hawkins that I love so much, the tipping point between the negative frequency and positive frequency is 200, and that's courage.
Mm.
The courage to be open, to try something new, to change, to show up differently, to treat yourself better, like whatever, the courage to change something. That's the magic point. When you're at that courage, then there's so many possibilities for growth.
Mm-hmm.
But everything below that with fear and pride and anger and grief and shame and all of those like low negative feeling states, it is hard to get out of that. It is
Definitely
hard. It is dark and dense and sticky, and which is why it's a slow process up. And it's like finding your own path. What tools are going to work for you in what order? If this book isn't working for you now, put it down. Try something else. Divine timing, it'll bring it back when it needs to, you know? But learning to listen to yourself and feel yourself and honor yourself. Self-compassion is an amazing positive coping tool.
that one's lovely.
It's a necessity.
Yeah.
You need these tools and feeling states to get you through, to keep you afloat and supported. That's why community is a positive coping tool. Support groups.
God, that one's been working wonders for me lately. Who would have thought?
Yes, it has been. Yes. And there's something real about being vulnerable, and it is not easy showing up in that way. But if you can be courageous and keep doing it for you because you feel it's in your highest good and you feel safe, and keep that up. It's hard. It's long, it's dark, but it's also beautiful, and it can be really fun and joyful because that's what's on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're done crying so much and you're with people and like who are supporting you, it turns into laughter so often. It can transmute that fast, where you go from sobbing to laughing and then release, and you're done. It's over, that moment.
Mm-hmm. I've experienced that firsthand somewhat recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, wow. Okay.
There's so many good
We're going to be
positive
getting
tools and
so into this throughout this whole
Yeah.
season. This is just sort
I feel
of
like we're just
an
going to
introduction.
continue. Yeah, I feel like we're going to continue talking about like the things that we're actively learning and the stuff that's been working really well for us. But yeah, just as like a final point to this whole thing, and then we're going to wrap up this first episode of season 2. Yeah, I liked how you really reiterated or just iterated how all of this is a very personal game that each one of us just get to individually experience and experiment with is all of these different tools. Because, you know, as like Teal Swan's advice like worked for me, that will probably not work for you listening, you know, or if it does, great. But we all are kind of our own little magical puzzle, and we all have our own pieces that fit in our puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And as observers of this life, we get to assess what pieces fit and what pieces don't.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's a journey to see the picture. And
there's no right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
There's no shortcut. There's no, oh, this is taking too long. It's going to take however long it takes.
Mm-hmm.
It's the journey. Enjoy as much as you can. That's why being present and noticing the beauty and being grateful for things in your environment and around you. These are the things that carry you through, that give you purpose and meaning while you're letting go of the things that have hurt you, so that it no longer hurts you. These are repressed emotions. They make people sick. They keep them suffering their whole life. It doesn't have to be that way. You can unburden yourself in your own beautiful, magical, unique way. So experiment, try, read, listen, play. No pressure, just love.
Yeah.
No judgment.
It's really all play.
It is. And learning to be present, not living in the past, not fearing the future, but appreciating where you are now. So if you don't like it, you can change it. I do believe that. Might not be easy. You might not know how. That's okay. You just have to open yourself to who it is that's going to help you. When you're ready, the mentor will show. When you're ready, the group will appear. You'll find yourself in a place where you get to make those connections and start to observe the magic and the synchronicities that Spirit offers as their messages.
Synchronicity and divine timing. Yes. Beautifully said. I think this was a great start to this wonderful season that we're going to be talking all about. I don't know. Do you want to dive into a quick overview of the stuff that we're going to be looking at in this season?
Yeah, this is just all about coping mechanisms. What do we call it? Hold on. Coping tools and beyond. Okay.
Coping tools and beyond.
So if the first season was laying the foundation, right? It was all about the beginning works, the self-awareness, the beginning with the tools of grounding and meditation, self-care, a lot of these like early things. This season 2 is about coping tools and beyond. We're going to be going into the shadow work and different therapies and modalities, empathy, intuition, toxic and unhealthy relationships, and like just how to spot them. Just so many things. So yeah, this is all about the coping tools and things that we've personally played with. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm going to say that. For us, this is going to be a lot of fun, and I hope it is for the listeners as well, as we get to explore and share. So thank you so much for being here with our first episode back in season 2. We can't wait to come back and share more of our stories and normalizing healing.
Yes, well said. This has been an honor. I'm so excited to record the rest of the episodes. And I also really hope that whoever is listening enjoyed listening to us. And yeah, in the description box below, we are going to have our new Patreon linked there. If anybody out there is interested
and wants to support us and our growth of our podcast.
Yeah, there will be different tiers of which you can donate to for whatever you feel called to donate if you do. And yeah, we have some special stuff over there if you want to check it out.
Yes, indeed. And please join us next week when we come back and we dive deeper into meditation and we start to talk about the inner landscape, which is one of my favorite places.
Yes, meditation is like the coping tool to rule all coping tools.
It really is. It's like the top tier, like king of coping tools.
Yes.
Like you kind of can't do it without it. And there's so many different kinds of meditation. Just saying. There's
so many
different kinds. It's not just one, right one. Anyway, just throw that out there. Anyway.
We'll talk all about that next week.
Indeed. Have a beautiful and blessed week.
Yes. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.